Purchasing a used car may be a stressful ordeal, and acquiring a used electric vehicle is not an exception to this rule. A growing number of used electric vehicles are now available on the market, closely following the trend of increasing sales of new electric vehicles by automakers. When looking for a used electric vehicle, the most fundamental rule for purchasing a used automobile still applies: find a vehicle that has been carefully cared for and properly maintained. However, when looking into the purchase of a used electric vehicle, a few factors unique to EVs should be kept in mind. So, what should one know about before buying a used electric car? Cars.com spent $35,665 on its first brand new electric vehicle, a 2011 Nissan Leaf SL. 19 months later, when they tried to sell it to a private party with just 11,000 miles on the odometer, they could only receive $19,000 for it. This represents a depreciation of 47%. Because petrol costs are so high and inventories of all types of vehicles are at historic lows, used electric cars can come at a considerable discount. However, when things are closer to normal, the pricing for second-hand electric vehicles is more reasonable. Even though tax credits have been depleted for Tesla and GM for a few years, the market promptly accounted for the federal tax credits available on new electric vehicles. These credits reduce the apparent purchase price of most pre-owned battery electric vehicles by up to $7,500. State and local incentives may also play a role depending on where you make your purchase. The rest of the issue has been consumers' reluctance to buy used electric vehicles because they have believed a few things, including that newer models would be coming with longer ranges, which is true, that they truly need more range, which is often false, and that a used EV is closer to imminent and prohibitively expensive battery death, which is highly unlikely. We'll get to the largest fearmonger in a moment, but for now, it is okay to say that customers with these worries have received some fantastic prices on second-hand electric vehicles. The batteries in electric cars are more comparable to those in hybrid cars than in mobile phones. They gradually lose capacity over time, but a complete failure that necessitates replacement is a highly unusual occurrence. This should relieve one of people's biggest concerns about purchasing a used electric vehicle. However, you should still consider your daily range requirements and make sure that you reconcile those requirements not with a brand new version of the car's EPA estimated range, but rather with a vehicle of its present age. If you intend to keep the car for many years to come, you should also account for the possibility of the vehicle's range decreasing further. However, based on the data that is now available, the majority of EVs lose between 10 and 20% of their capacity after 10 years of use. The capacity loss rate varies depending on how it is charged and driven and the climate. Remember to consider the inevitable temporary drop in the range produced by cold temperatures if it applies to you. Temperatures below zero can quickly eliminate half of your available range. Some time back, people were taught that the best cars were used cars from a desert region that had low mileage, because it wasn't exposed to much rain, road salt, or sea air. Because it was in the desert, the likelihood of it rusting was significantly reduced. However, after some time has passed and new technologies applied, automobiles have gotten so much more resistant to rust that the desert may no longer be the benefit it used to be. Yet no one anticipated that it would become a drawback. There is no way around the fact that electric vehicles gradually lose their range as they get older. Nevertheless, the data also suggests that hot conditions speed up this deterioration. Having a lower odometer reading is an advantage. However, facts tell us that an electric vehicle that is used frequently is a happy EV, while an EV that is driven or charged infrequently might incur battery damage, notably if it is allowed to discharge too far and for too long, or to stay unused permanently. But how can you tell if a second-hand car you are considering to buy is in good condition? Because some of these things you can't spot with the naked eye. It's still early, but a firm called Recurrent is also monitoring electric vehicles in the United States. They're using the data collected from these vehicles' batteries to evaluate how specific types and models degrade over time. The business thinks that it can identify the condition of an electric vehicle battery by using only the most fundamental information, and it has even informed a couple of its community members who give recurrent permission to access data wirelessly about batteries that were failing prematurely due to production faults. Naturally, the higher the number of EV owners who sign up to have their data sampled by Recurrent, the higher the quality of the data will be, which in turn will increase the likelihood that you may one day be able to buy a used EV that has a more comprehensive record. Participants pay nothing and receive a report every month that indicates the health of their battery, its maximum range, how that has changed over time, as well as with variations in the weather, and even a projection of its range in 3 years, provided that the owner does not relocate to a new region. This information can assist owners in ensuring that the vehicle will continue to satisfy their demands and determine when the car should be sold. The fact that electric vehicles, EVs, have fewer moving parts, require less maintenance, and have one large and expensive component that distracts attention and instills dread, the battery pack, does not mean that you should avoid having a prospective purchase inspected by a skilled mechanic. Even though it costs about $100 depending on the repair shop and the location, this step can save you a lot more money in the future. Additionally, it should estimate how much life is left on wear items like brakes and suspension components, even if they are now functioning adequately. There is no cause to dread an electric vehicle with a battery replaced due to recall, defect, age, or damage. However, if a vehicle has been badly damaged, it should cost less, even if it has been fixed. This is the only reason to fear an electric vehicle with a battery that has been replaced. Keep in mind that outside of recalls, replacing batteries, particularly the cell or modules, may be the responsibility of third parties rather than the vehicle's original manufacturer, and has been the case with hybrids. Third-party solutions will likely emerge for high-volume EVs, especially those no longer covered by warranty. Given the expensive work involved and the determination of certain manufacturers to repair whole packs rather than defective modules, this is an unavoidable development. Any claim made by the seller on replacing the battery must be supported by documentation and verified whenever possible by inspection. Although it is currently the norm for the coverage to transfer to subsequent owners of an electric vehicle, this was not always the case in the past. Current EV powertrain warranties run for at least 8 years and 100,000 miles. Because modern warranties do not apply to earlier models unless the manufacturer's terms have stayed consistent, of course, any shopper should use a free VIN decoder to verify the vehicle's model year and find the original warranty terms before making a purchase decision. To show you how much variation there is, even the most recent Tesla models have powertrain coverage of 100,000 miles. You might also come across an earlier Hyundai, such as the first generation of the Ioniq or Kona EV, in which the warranty on the powertrain is not transferable. As was mentioned earlier, lithium-ion batteries gradually lose their capacity over time. However, not all manufacturers' warranties, either in the past or in the present, have covered battery replacement should that capacity drop below a stated level. Some warranties cover only failure or manufacturing defects. Not everything that is sold may be passed on from the original purchaser, and this includes warranties. The free DC fast charging that is becoming increasingly frequent at Electrify America stations, which is often limited in kilowatt hours or years, typically begins and ends with the initial buyer. There is also no certainty of a connection to the vehicle's so-called telematics system. The majority of electric vehicles have been outfitted with two-way data connection, which enables the use of a smartphone app to start and stop charging, view range, and preheat the interior while the vehicle is hooked into grid power. This helps maintain the battery charge for the vehicle's operating range. On the other hand, the connection might not be accessible or cost more in a used EV. The brand new 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 only has 3 years of free Bluetooth. This means that after that point, you won't be able to precondition the cabin of the vehicle at your whim while it's connected to a charger, unless you're willing to pay $198 per year, or as little as $93.67 annually if you pay for 3 years in advance. Even though the key fob can start the vehicle remotely, it strangely only functions when it is not plugged in. This necessitates the use of a smartphone in conjunction with a BlueLink membership. On the other hand, Nissan has used considerable efforts to ensure that even older models can use this form of wireless connection. Ensure that the connectivity cost does not come at the expense of preconditioning. It is essential to remember that the wireless updatability that Tesla was the first to pioneer and that many other manufacturers have since embraced, particularly in electric versions, has a drawback that can be debated. It allows manufacturers to move away from one-time payments for features and towards subscription models instead. To provide one example, Tesla has done this with its autopilot feature so that customers will continue to pay the company month after month. This can lead to confusion and unscrupulous sales techniques. Ensure you know everything that comes with acquiring a used electric vehicle, notably a Tesla, and everything that does not come with the purchase. It's possible that once money has already exchanged hands, the vehicle you test drive will act drastically differently. That's all from this video. What else do you think should be considered when buying a used electric car? See you at the next one.